Hi, welcome back to Star Wars Insights. Now, if you like this channel, please subscribe below. I really appreciate it when people subscribe. Now, this video is quite a difficult video to make, and it's one that's really concerned me for some time. And I'm going to try and go into it in a bit of detail. It's based on the scene from Last Jedi, the Canto Bight scene, and it's based on a casino. It's about a 30-minute segment, which was quite controversial because many fans thought it shouldn't be included in Star Wars because it didn't really mean anything. There's no real plot or storyline to the whole 30-minute sequence. But inside that sequence, there was three main points that it looked like the producers and the writers were trying to get across. Now, the first one was corporate greed. So you had the character DJ explaining how there was these people that were arms dealers who were making money from both the First Order and the Resistance by selling them weapons, and all these aliens were making a lot of money then gambling. So it was like a part of our society where there's billionaires and they kind of waste their money gambling. They don't really care about the society at large. So the first point was corporate greed. Now the second one was based on animal cruelty. So it looked like the writers wanted to highlight the concept of animal cruelty. So it had these animals that were used as racing animals, so quite similar to horse racing. But if we see in this scene, you have these scars, so it looked like the animals were being whipped. And there is actually a scene where the handlers are whipping these large animals. So it looked like the writers were trying to create a discussion around animal cruelty. So that's point two. And point three is child labour. So in Canto Bight, there were a number of children that looked like they were kind of like almost like slave workers. For example, we had this child who was forced to sleep inside the pen of one of the racing animals. So there was NASA's point three. So there's real 3 points that are highlighted in the Canto Bight sequence: corporate greed, animal cruelty, and child labour. Now, you might think that this is really positive that a movie, such a huge movie of Star Wars, is trying to raise awareness of these issues. I can see that myself. But my real aggravation is the complete hypocrisy surrounded by Disney, particularly on 2 points, and I'm going to go into them and show you some articles which will support my frustration surrounding Disney's hypocrisy. 2 points I really want to discuss are corporate greed and child labour, and why I believe it's really hypocritical of Disney to try to raise awareness of these. It almost seems to be that Disney are trying to put out some form of propaganda as a form of defence for themselves. The level of hypocrisy from Disney is such astounding, it's hard to believe that they could have the gall to do what they're doing. So if we take corporate greed as the first step, there's a number of articles online discussing LuxLeaks. Now, this was a set of documents that was leaked to reporters about accountancies and banking activities in Luxembourg. So Luxembourg is a small country in Europe, and they have very different tax rules. They have low, almost no tax for businesses. And what these documents allege is that Disney set up a whole host of accounting processes that allowed them to transfer earnings or revenue to Luxembourg bank accounts and then transfer them into debts, allowing them to pay much lower volume of tax. And now this article suggests that Disney was able to effectively pay a tax rate of 0.3%. So you have this business that makes $18.2 billion and it's paying 0.3% tax. So it's almost paying no tax. So where other businesses have to pay a much higher rate of tax, let's say 20% or sometimes higher, you have huge business paying 0.3% tax. And that is corporate greed. They're using tax loopholes to manipulate how much tax they're able to pay. So Disney have made a movie with Star Wars telling people, trying to raise corporate greed and how greed is bad, whilst they're using tax loopholes to pay almost no tax. So it's complete hypocrisy, because tax is used to fund hospitals, children's education, roads, transport infrastructure. You might not like tax, but tax has many benefits. But with Disney, they've allegedly used a whole host of different methods to avoid paying tax. Now, this article is even worse. Although this article came out after Last Jedi was released, so Disney may not have been completely aware of it, but they should have been, because this article points out that Disney's tax offices were raided in France, where the French tax officials went in and seized documents which allege that Disney used methods to transfer profits that they made in France to other countries to help them to pay lower tax. So they made, let's say, $50 million profit in France. Instead of paying 20% tax, they then allegedly transfer that profit to other countries. And it's claimed that between 2012 and 2015, French Disney transferred around 90% of its profits to the UK. So why is this company making movies telling us or warning us about corporate greed when they're often being raided by French tax officials? Absolutely disturbing that a company can have the gall to try to warn other people about corporate greed whilst they're allegedly breaking the law themselves. It's just shocking. It's disturbing, it really is. So the second point I want to raise is slave labour. So in Canto Bight you saw the children that appeared to be slave workers being forced to look after the racing animals. But there are a number of articles online discussing how Disney are being accused of running Chinese sweatshops where workers, sometimes as young as 14, are being forced to work long hours and also overtime. There's also sweatshops in China where staff have committed suicide and they're working for Mattel, which produce and manufacture toys as part of the contract for Star Wars. So Disney is making films trying to highlight how bad child labour is, whilst they have a supply chain that's using 14-year-old workers in factories in China. Now this article is from 2011. There's also a second article which shows children as young as 14 again working 12-hour days and are also sleeping inside factories. So Disney has been aware of this issue for quite some time. You know, the idea that factories in China are using underage workers, and sometimes in this article it just says that some of these workers might actually be less than 14. Now Disney has invested into a corporate initiative which is like a fund that's being used to tackle forced labour. So a number of companies, along with Apple, Disney and Walmart, have paid a total of $23 million into a fund to help tackle forced labour. Now Disney have done this, it's alleged, because they've been found themselves of having terrible work conditions where staff are being forced to work long hours. Now these two articles are from 2010 and 2011. But this article, just from 2018, claims that Chinese factory workers are being paid 1 penny, this is British currency, 1 penny for every doll that they produce. So the doll is sold for £34.99, which is around $45, and yet the Chinese workers are being paid a pittance. So every doll that the Chinese workers produce, they're being paid a penny. And it also discusses the terrible conditions that these workers are forced to work in these factories. So why is Disney producing movies using Star Wars and making these scenes and these storylines that promote the awareness of child labour and slave labour and corporate greed when Disney are being accused of it themselves? And here it discusses how some basic rates of pay can be as low as 85 pence per hour, and there's also no holiday or sick pay. So Disney, the absolute gall to make these movies raising awareness of these issues. You know, it's like a murderer telling someone else not to kill somebody. It's absolutely shocking, and I don't know how Disney are able to get away with it. They shouldn't be able to have this level of this power. They have the power to tell stories to millions of people, maybe billions of people, and yet they're being accused with many articles online of using child labour, of using badly paid labour, of using illegal activities to avoid paying taxes. It's just really disgusting, and I think that if Disney are going to continue doing this, making movies try and highlight child labour and corporate greed, I think something needs to be done about it. They shouldn't be able to get away with it because it's just a form of propaganda. They are using their movies to try and create this level of propaganda that says, oh, Disney are a fantastic company, look at us, we're raising social awareness. Yet in the background, behind the scenes, they're actually committing serious crimes. They're allegedly committing tax evasion in France. And in China, they're using child labour. It's absolutely shocking and disgusting. and I think that something needs to be done about it. If it continues, I don't know what the answer is, but in my view, Disney should have Star Wars stripped away from them. They're abusing Star Wars to turn Star Wars into a propaganda machine to try and create a public relations exercise. That's all it is. Star Wars isn't about the storylines or giving fans what they want. It's just a public relations exercise to glorify themselves whilst they're being accused of using child labour, of using sweatshops where workers are committing suicide, of using illegal activities to avoid paying tax. It's just disgusting, absolutely shocking. And if it continues, something needs to be done about it. And I think Disney needs to come out and give an explanation of why they're doing these activities. I mean, this is only a few months ago. This article came out only a few months ago. If they're going to continue doing this, Star Wars needs to be stripped away from Disney. It really does.